What up? What up? What up? We are here again for another week of our lunch and learn with my main man Tony. What's good today, man?
Hey, how's it going, Sean?
I am doing well, man. Just got back from Lansing. Had an opportunity to speak to some scholars in the summer school program, man. Yeah, and I'm gonna still call them scholars, although they were in the summer school, and I got a chance to talk to them about that. Right?
That's awesome.
You know, what I mean,
What
I'm
what
like,
what age, what ages you're talking about?
actually, they were eighth graders going into um, the ninth grade, man. Yeah, they were they. It was all new to them. Like all of this was this new, this whole transition of going from this whole middle school to high school. So yeah, I went down there, and the crazy thing about it, man, is that once I discovered that they were in school because they had some challenges through the year or whatever the case, was interesting that when I asked them about how many of you love school versus don't like school, all of that stuff, right? So a lot of them were not excited about school.
Sure.
But my question to them was like, if you don't like school so much, you decided to take it again during your summer break.
Hmm.
So
So
is it
did that
really?
did that resonate with
Oh,
with
it
some of them?
did. It did
Yeah.
because they had to think like, yeah, I say I don't like this, but here I am in summer school when I say I really don't like it. And so it
Hmm.
made them start thinking like, well, why
Sure.
am I putting myself in this situation to do this? And I came from a place that wasn't judgment, right? It
Sure.
was a place to make them think like, yeah, if I say I really don't want to be in school, but I
Right.
chose
Right.
to take some summer classes,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
So at that point they like perked up like, all right, this dude, he must have something to say because he is coming right down my street. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was really interesting. And one of my other techniques when I'm speaking to, especially with young people, because it's hard to keep their attention, right? This is the time to get out their
Kids are
class. They are
so
in the
tough.
auditorium the whole
Yeah.
night. So what I do, I told the dude who was with me my technique, and I'm giving away game to people, but this is my technique, right? So when I come in, if it's a rowdy group, I immediately kind of scrap my original message and I
Mhm.
tailor it towards that group where I will start to talk about real life situations and circumstances. I go straight for the jugular, right? So
Yeah.
I don't build up. I
Yeah.
go in and almost like pop them in the mouth to shake
Hmm.
them up. Then once I go there, then I'll back up, right? Because
Sure.
now I have credibility. They like,
Yeah.
oh, he know what I'm talking about, right? And that's what I had to do with this group. And the moment I did that, and I went after the one or two students who were the loudest and who were the
Uh-huh.
most rowdy, once I was able to get them, and I'm not the one who's like, hey, listen up. Hey, you're not paying attention because you lose them
Yeah.
already. It shows that you don't
Yeah.
have control. And so
Yeah.
my thing is, I don't address them. I
Hmm.
begin to address the community, identifying that behavior, right? But not in judgment to where it's just like, oh, I can't keep doing this. And I don't even trip on them. And I might wind up even using them. And so that's what I did today. I gave her one of my books. And so now once I got her buy in, the rest of them, like, all right, what's going? What's going on?
Yeah.
What's popping?
Right. Right. That's
So, yeah,
cool.
man.
Yeah. No. Doing talking to teenage kids, it's large groups of teenage kids. It's a challenge. It's very different. It's a different experience. Yeah, we did that a little while ago. The had a presentation for each of the departments, kind of in Genesee County, talking about like what we do and all that sort of stuff. And it's like, man, who wants to hear some guy talk about like what the child support office does, right? Like if you're 15, you're like, No, man, I'm not interested.
Yes,
So yeah, no,
yes,
it is a challenge, but yeah, laying on the humor heavy is a lot of times like, yeah, this is going to be hard for you to want to be excited about, but that's a good tactic if you got a rowdy crew. That's pretty
absolutely,
good. Yeah.
absolutely. So cool. Today for our lunch and learn, man. Let's tap right into it. But I'm gonna just let you know. I already ate my lunch.
Yes.
I don't have any more residue to show. But what
Mm-hmm.
I had today was since I was in Lansing, the gentleman I was with who was recording my presentation, he was like, "Do they have a Chick-fil-A here?" And I was like, "Yeah, there's one here." So I kind of wanted to brag too. So I drove him through East Lansing, campus. I
Sure.
wanted him to see Michigan State campus. So I took the long way. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
To let them see. And then we happened to wind up at Chick-fil-A. So I had a Chick-fil-A wrap and I had their lemonade. But
That's
yes, we was
cool.
on MSU campus.
Oh yeah. See, we are both MSU alum,
Yep.
and yeah. So when I'm on MSU's campus, I'm like trying to go to like the stuff that I liked when I was there. But
Yeah.
there's so few of those places left, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a lot of the places I was like, it's not here anymore, man. It's
Yeah.
trying to walk down memory lane and
Yeah.
yeah, and to take my son to be like, oh, you've got to go like have like Menas or whatever, and it's like doesn't exist there or whatever.
Yep.
It's super
Yep.
bummer or whatever.
Yep. Facts, bro. Facts. But that's still there is the ice cream spot. That's still
Mhm.
there. So
Yes,
you can always
yes,
depend on the ice cream spot, bro.
you can, you can, yeah. So I had an interesting lunch today because today was our FOC picnic, our annual employee appreciation luncheon mm, the supervisors, we all pitch in and get hot dogs and hamburgers and all that stuff for the team. So
You
yeah.
lucky I didn't know because I would have crashed the party.
Oh man, you
I
would have
love
been.
me a good. I love me a good Kogo's hot dog.
Oh yeah, which of course that's what we've got to do, right? If you're in Flint and you're gonna have a hot dog cookout, you gotta have it. So yep, that's what we
You have
did.
to. You have to, man. You have to. So cool, man. So yeah, so today, man, for our lunch and learn, I wanted to ask you in about the legal system, right? Working with, the guys I work with, have a real problem, and not all, right? But I just want to talk about those who have some concerns, some worry, some challenges of engaging the legal system. Um, definitely like the friend of the court. Um,
Sure.
and I was really excited, and I'm not going to say any names, but I was really excited when I heard that you guys got a new hire, someone that's an attorney on your team that has come to be a part of the amazing staff, man, that's from this community, that know this community. Had a chance to work with him. Really excited, man, because honestly, one of the things he looked like the clients that is in this community, and has a unique and special way to be able to communicate with these guys, right?
Mhm.
And although he represent and work with all families, but it's really exciting to see someone that look like them in this community
Yeah.
to feel a little bit more confident, right, and comfortable. And so, since we've been working with you guys, we just brought on a partner with a new attorney, Atlanta. I believe her name is Roberts. She's a Michigan State
Robert.
alumni,
Yep. Yep.
and she is doing an amazing job with us. Right, the dudes were, the men were very concerned at first because it was a female that was going to represent them in the courts when they needed representation. But it has proven to be a great investment, So Ruth Mod and CS Smart and those guys who particularly invest in that part of our program is, it's been amazing because they are definitely helping families be restored in their resources. And so I say all of that to say, or to ask, where is some of my guys are running away from the legal and the justice system, right? Because of history and, of feelings of injustice or whatever. I found myself in the last couple of years who was afraid are being more involved in that side of it. Tiptoe, tiptoe, still tiptoe when I come
Yeah.
through. But
Yeah.
so I just asked you, like, what made you, where some is running away from? Why did you run to the judicial system, and
Hmm.
why is it important, even with some of our trauma, specifically Black men? Why is it important for us to get more involved in it?
Sure.
So, twofold question.
Twofold. Yeah. So on the personal side of things, you know, when you look at when you look at government and you look at kind of so go back in time machine on MSU's campus trying to figure out what we're doing a lot of MSU plug-in today, but we're on MSU's
Yeah.
campus and I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do. I look at where all of the decisions are being made and who do the people who are making the decisions, and it's people with law degrees. It's every person in the government who makes things happen basically at that time had a law degree. And so I went to law school with no intention of being the person in the courtroom every day. I went with the intention of being part of changing the system and making the system better. And being an attorney made it so that that would open up the doors to be able to be in the room where those sort of policy things are happening, where there's an opportunity to change some things that maybe need to be changed. And then the longer that I worked in the court system, which has been now most of my career, then you can kind of really see the impact that the court has on families, and in particular that's my wheelhouse, right? There's criminal law attorneys, there's attorneys who do civil litigation, insurance, all that sort of stuff. That's not my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is how the court system impacts families, and you can see that it impacts them in a big way. So then once you're on the inside, you can see how much of it impacts. And then so that's where you really got to start saying, okay, well, how can we make some changes to make this actually work well for the people we serve? And in Genesee County, in our community where we work, that means that people are going to be bringing their history of their experience with not only the court system but government as a whole, right? And so we know that in Flint there is a history of distrust of the government, and so for because things have happened involving the government that have impacted people in a negative way, right? And I'm not trying to call anybody out in particular here, right? It is just a matter of that is the history of Genesee County, right? And the history of Flint. And so we need to be really mindful of that and be mindful that the way we engage and the way we set policy and the way we hire, using your example of our most recent referee, that all makes a difference, right? That all makes a difference in how we interact and how we make the system more family friendly, how we make the system something that people actually want to engage with. And we're not there yet. I'm not saying that we've reached the top of that mountain. We
Yeah.
certainly haven't. But what we talk about in this office all the time is that our mountaintop is to be an office that people choose to come to, not because they are forced to come to us. They choose to come to us. We're a long way away from that. We got a long history that we have to overcome from people not wanting to engage with us. But what we want to get is to a point where both moms and dads come to us because they want our help, right? They are in a bad situation, and we can be the resource and the office that can kind of guide them through that difficult time. And
Yeah.
that's a we got a long way to go. We got things yet to do, but that is we have that history that exists, and we need to be mindful of that history as we move forward.
Yeah. But tell me, like, and what do I share with fathers that I work with, right? Who struggle with having some of their voices, uh, heard. How do I get them to feel good or confident of approaching um, the judicial system when it comes to representing their family? Because as and you know me, bro. And so working, I tell people one of the things that help me best in the work that I do is going to work in the prison. They
Mhm.
really taught me on how to advocate, how to hold people accountable, be a supportive or whatever, without crossing lines, right? And so, in dealing with families, man, I see it. I see both sides, right? And some of the families that I serve, particularly in the supervised visit, right? Um, I'm seeing it, right? I'm seeing it versus just in the impact is just the one side. I'm only
Sure.
more so seeing the father side, and then when we do engage mom, is that story, right? But I see and know some guys who I know for a fact that want to be involved, should be involved, paying child support or whatever the case. But when I talk to that parent, the other side, they're like, I don't want him to do, I don't want him involved at all. And listening to in between the lines, a lot of the hurt is because he is no longer with her,
Sure.
right? And when that particular type of father, approaches the court, sometimes he feels like they're just not going to help me, right? I'm like, yo, you need to go. But he's
Mhm.
like, for what? Right? I'm
Sure.
not going to get any support. So my thing is like, yo, how do we convince guys to be more involved and try to become more trusting of the system?
Yeah, it's one of the big challenges that we have. Without a doubt, it is one of the big challenges that we have because number one, some people have been burned, right? They have their personal experience, and it is a legitimate personal experience. And I'm not here to say, oh, that's not how it is. I'm here to say, yep, that probably happened. I'm not going to try to discredit somebody's experience with that. And so there are some people who have gone and tried and had a bad experience. So one of the things that is really key, I think, is expectation setting about what the court system is there for, and there's many different parts of the court system, right? So there's like if you go in front of a judge or a referee, they're there to hear the arguments of both parties, right?
Hmm?
To hear what the two parties have to say. They're there to follow the law and the facts and then make a decision on what they hear. So, and sometimes that might be what's called a motion hearing, and you're going to get 15 minutes. That's it, right? Because that isn't the time to call witnesses and bring testimony and all that sort of stuff. That's called a hearing that's going to happen down the road, a trial or an evidentiary hearing. So sometimes it's an expectation setting thing. Do you go in front of a judge or a referee and expect them to just kind of talk to you, right? Or are you expecting a formal hearing? When you go and you're going in Genesee County on Monday, do you know that it's going to be you say your piece for 5 minutes, the other person says their piece for 5 minutes, and then you get to respond back for 5 minutes, and then we're going to decide whether you get a longer hearing down the road, or
Mm.
are you expecting you're going to be there all day getting put on the stand, being able to call witnesses, present your evidence, all of that sort of stuff. So expectations make a huge difference there. And we have not done a great job of setting up the expectations for people. Now, if you were then say, my expectation, because I'm going to go meet with a caseworker at the
Hmm.
front of the court, now your expectation could be different. It's going to be less formal. It's going to be more of a conversation about what you and the other parent want. We are going to talk to you about options. It's not going to be a situation where it's that really formal dynamic of a courtroom, right? And so, and then there's even less formal processes than that, right? You could just come into our front counter and somebody could give you a ton of information, connect you with resources, give you all the right forms, all that sort of stuff. But it's expectation. What are you expecting that's going to happen? And we, on our side of things, have to do a better job of explaining what expectations are going to be, right? Hey, you've got a Monday motion hearing coming up. It's only going to be a few minutes. And this isn't legal advice. This is just telling people how it's going to go,
Yes,
right?
yes,
And
yes.
and then that sets that expectation. Or if you say, hey, we want to have you come in for an appointment via Zoom or in person, well, what's the expectation? I need to tell you what's going to happen there, right? Because if you don't know, then you're building it up in your head. And then
Yeah.
one of the other things that you and I have talked about this in the past is from a trauma informed lens is if the if the courthouse, the friend of the court, the we're in the McCree building, which is the district court building. If you're the circuit court, whatever building or going through a metal detector or being in a hearing room, somebody in a black robe, whatever the thing is, if that is going to be a stressor for you, if that is going to be something that's going to cause that fight, flight, or freeze to happen in your body, those sorts of things, do a trial run. Go to that space on a day that you do not have to go, argue your case. And this is good advice for moms and dads, right? Like this is not like, oh, this is how you win your case, right? This is just justice is not best served by people being upset, right?
Yeah.
Justice is best served by two parents coming in, being able to, as calmly as they can, articulate to the court what's going on. And guess what? If being in the courthouse is stressful because something happened to you in the past, something happened to a family member in the past in that building, being, going through a metal detector stresses you out, whatever that thing may be. We all have our stuff that stresses us
Yeah.
out. If that's going to stress you out, go check it out first. Walk through, see what it's going to look like. And if it's
Yeah.
so bad that it's going to be a really big problem, that's where attorneys come in. That's where advocates come in. Because if
That's good.
you don't feel like you're going to be able to, represent yourself well, that's where attorneys come in because
I
they're going to
like.
be the one who's going to speak for you, right? They're going to be the one who's going to speak for you. So, I mean, it's, we very much believe that we should make the court system, family court in particular, right? Because that impacts so many people,
So many
right?
people, so many
Too many
that can
people.
lead to something else, right? That can lead to something else.
Yep. Like the thing is, how many people are going to experience personally going to experience a criminal case in their lifetime? Not that many, but you may be a victim, a family member may be a victim, that sort of thing. There could be some interaction. How many times of people in somebody's life is going to get sued civilly, all that sort of stuff? It's going to happen. But the family court system impacts so many people. It
Yeah.
impacts tons of people, right?
Yeah.
In Genesee County alone, we have 45,000 active cases. That's not how many cases we've ever had. That's how many cases that friend of the court actively has open, right? So we are impacting a lot of folks. So we
Forty-five
should try to make it
thousand. 45,000.
45,000. 45,000.
Wow.
So, and now some of those cases are old and we're just
Yeah.
still working on those cases and whatnot with that family, but we have a lot of cases. So we impact a lot of people. I certainly want to make it as easy as possible to navigate the system, but it is still a court system.
Yeah.
And there is sometimes going to be a point where you're going to need to educate yourself about how the system's going to work, or you may need to hire an attorney to kind of help you navigate the system. We hope that's not required for everybody. We hope that families can, through mediation and some of our other services, we can help families navigate the system without always needing to, hire an attorney every single time. But that's
Yeah.
going to happen. That's
Yeah.
a part of this for sure. It is a legal system, right? And we are definitely trying to make it accessible, but there is some stuff that you've contacted me on stuff, not on case specific, but just being like, hey, this issue's going on. Where do I point this person in the direction? And I've had to say to an attorney, that's not something that like somebody's going to be able to navigate on their own.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's some
And,
stuff that is like that.
that makes sense, right? I just not just pray, but I will continue to be a voice, right? Where you mentioned about going to take a trial run, going to the courthouse. Because I say when I started going initially, I'm telling you, I was triggered, right?
Yeah.
Triggered. I'm good
Yep.
now, right?
Yep.
But I was triggered, right? It took some time where I couldn't focus on the business at hand because of the triggering, right?
Mhm.
And so, just like, yo, I don't want to drop a piece of paper because I don't know if that's, if I'm a kid,
Yeah.
dropping some paper, in the courtroom or, inside the building, just anything, right? Just like walking a straight and an arrow. And then it helps when you have frontline people, those officers, the deputies who's at the place where you walk through to get wound and you take your, like at your office in particular, I would speak of those individuals, mostly all the ones I've ever encountered, very professional, very polite. That definitely took the pressure off. I can't speak that for every place. There's
Yeah.
places where that individual want you to know that they are in charge, and you bet not step out of line, right? From that standpoint. But I just my biggest one of my desires is for the court systems, the friends of the courts, to partner and connect with a lot more of the organizations in the community that are using who are ordered to go to court and have to
Mhm.
use the court on a consistent basis based on what their condition or their issue is, right? And
Yeah.
so the more and more that people in the judicial system get from behind the bench, get from behind the walls, and get into the community outside of that hat to see who's in the community, to see what takes place, I think it builds a better bridge and a better relationship, right? Because I understand both sides, it's easy for me to navigate it, right? Because I understand this side, and even dealing with the mothers, with their fathers or whatever, I understand. So now I'm like, okay, I understand both sides, and I understand this legal side. So it makes make it a little bit easier for me to navigate it to where I'm like, okay, I can say, well, have you considered this?
Mhm.
Or like, listen, that's not their role. Well, they're doing this possibly because of that, right? Or they're doing a lot of external blaming. But the real question is like, what have you done for you lately,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
To help you during this process. But I'm able to do that. We are, as an agency, are able to do that because we have been intentional about trying to understand.
Mhm.
Trying to understand and trying to um, connect. Hold on one
Yeah.
second.
So, I
Go ahead.
mean, one of the things on that I think, so one of the things that we've done here in Genesee County that I think I gotta just give credit to my team here on some stuff that I think is really powerful. Number one, obviously we work with you. So that's one, one of the ways. But, one of the things is that like we used to have 8,000 new bench warrants every single year.
I need you to say that one more time. So Mafio, my guess is who I do this lunch and learn with is Tony McDowell. He is the uh, deputy director, right? Is it the deputy
Right?
director?
The friend of the court, the director of the friend of the court.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, the director of the Friend of the Court here in Genesee County, where you have yours, where you are in Texas. Yours probably the Office of Child Support, but here in Michigan, we call it the Friend of the Court, and he's the director here in Genesee County. So now he just mentioned about 8,000 uh, warrants. I want to hear about that.
Yeah, so I think the child support's done in the Attorney General's office in Texas, if I no, if I'm remembering correctly. So, but yeah, so we used to have like 8,000 new warrants every year. Um, I think we did maybe 600 last year,
Really?
something along those lines. So um, that's a change
Whoa,
in
that's
in
huge.
approach, right? That's a actual number and change in approach, right? And so, but one of the things that I've said this stat before, some people are like, well, yeah, but then that means you're not going out and getting the money. No, we're just going out without warrants. We're just going out to people's houses because one of the things is some of the times we were getting a warrant for somebody just because they didn't want to come in, right? Because maybe this building or their experience with the court system was triggering or trauma or those sorts of things. So we go out to see people where they feel comfortable. That's not necessarily just at their house. That could be at an abandoned Kmart parking lot. It could be at a gas station. It could be wherever we we meet somebody at Rocky's Great Outdoors like every 2 weeks to pay their child support there. Because that is a place that is comfortable to them. And so, there is that's a change in approach. The other that I'm really proud of, especially since a lot of the COVID restrictions have lifted, is that we are out at community events at least twice a month. We are at community events. We are going to be at one tomorrow at the MSU Extension, where there's going to be a resource fair there. On Saturday, we're going to be part of the warrant clinic that is happening at the Peckham Career Center on Ballinger Highway. And we're going to be there to be at a no arrest facility, even though we don't have that many warrants. People are going to be able to go and deal with their district court warrants, and we're going to be there to help anybody who has child support issues of any kind.
Wow. I wish
If
I was
it's
there. I would have I wish I've known about it. I would have had Chuck come over there.
Yeah, it's mostly for district court cases
Okay.
where
Okay.
somebody has. So it's we're kind of like setting up a table like
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah. 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 I got you. I got you. I
But
got you.
like because it's mostly for district court stuff, where you and I would have talked about it. But it's one of those things though. Like if we can get a seat at the space, even if it's not our thing, 100% our thing. We want to be there so that if even one person has a question, and if that one person's a little bit more comfortable coming to, up to us, that would be good. We were at the Regency apartments like 2-3 weekends ago. Had a table set up there. I mean, we
Really?
are, yeah. So like at a lot of different locations, anytime there's community events where we can be at provided resources, that's something that we're trying to do. So to your very point that
So, but
like
my thing about it, Tony, you guys must go out because you make a lot of money off of this. Doing this
no.
stuff, you make a lot of money. So that must be why you guys do this, right?
No, we make no money off of that stuff.
Wait.
None
So how?
whatsoever.
Wait. So how does the Office of Child Support not make a whole but? So that's not what your role is.
It's not what our role is. Yeah. No. I mean, there is federal funding. The child support program is a federally funded program, at least in part. So there is federal funding that comes to offices all over the country for the child support program. But yeah, we are not. Big myth is that we're getting like 15% off the top or something like that for child support, and that's not how it works. And the thing is there is money that counties can get related to how much support they collect. It's a very complicated figure, but I can tell you that it is a very small percentage of any county's budget. But ultimately, it's not something that we're not in it for that. We're in it for public service,
Yep.
and we're not getting a bunch of money for doing these things. So it
And
is just all about
I, I had to be sarcastic, right?
I know
I
you
had, but
did.
but it's funny. I was talking to a mom the other day, and she was not really happy that the father was ordered by the court to get access to the child, right? And so I try to keep them focus on the main thing, right? Not dismissing whatever the history is, because if there's a history, we need to make sure that we have parameters of making sure mom feels comfortable, that she has all the resources she need, because this is a very triggering event, especially if there was a history of some type of violence. Even if it wasn't, but if it was triggering for whatever reason, right? So we allowed them to come in early, allow the child to meet the monitor, visit the place, get comfortable, because once the visits start, that parent who has a child is not allowed into the building, right? Because we want to keep all separation. But one of the moms said to me, she was like, you guys are pushing this, because she was upset that we was contacting the other party to making sure that he filled out his paperwork, right? So I don't want to just default. That's our role. That's what we do. But her response was, you guys doing this because you make so much money off of this. You make so much. I was like, ma'am, I said, if you really know, I said, listen, I told her how much we charge an hour, right? I'm like, this is what we charge an hour. And I said, do you know how many of our clients pay that? I was like, we can't, because most of them that we provide the service to has some type of financial situation. And then, so we give them a reduction. And then if we can't, then we have some grants in place where we can pay for it. And I'm like, us as an agency, I was like, me personally as Sean Hart is not getting a dime of
Right,
this portion. I'm just
right,
trying to help this thing become more sustainable. I said, that's why Mr. Sean Hart, when you go on this page, you see him speaking places. You see him writing books. Like, that's where I eat. This
yeah,
right here is for humanity. This is me serving the people. This is what I
yeah,
desire to do.
right,
But that's not my wheelhouse.
yeah.
So I'm just being sarcastic. I mean,
No, no, and I think it's a
but
really, really common myth, because the way that child support offices are funded is confusing. It is complicated, and it is a common myth that gets people kind of really focused that like we're getting a cut of all this, or that we even get the money. I've had that. Some people will say, "Well, you're just doing that because you're going to get the money," and I was like, "No, that's not how it works." But I understand that it's this big federal system, super confusing. Why, like, why all this stuff exists and stuff like that, and so it's complicated, and I don't blame people for being maybe upset, because everything looks like it's a business, right? And so
yep,
there's certainly like a feeling of like, well, that must be being done. People must choose to do this because it's a moneymaker,
yeah,
right? And
yeah. Man,
yeah,
I speak to so many of these agencies and they professionals trying to empower them and get them to keep going and not quit. And most of the people that I'm speaking to, some of them they robbing Peter to pay Paul themselves. Some of them have some active cases themselves in different areas. They just want to serve people. And
yeah,
I'm trying to get them to say, hey, don't you quit. You
yeah,
hang in there. You know
yeah,
why you started doing the work that you do,
yeah,
right? Because it's not a whole lot in there, right? A lot of people who come into this space do it because they have a heart and a compassion to help other people, because they have a history and a story themselves, man. So yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
that's our
No, and I think a little bit of inside baseball to let everybody know, you and I've had those conversations where we've been in a room and we were like, is are we like using our time well being in
yes,
this room? Because I
yes,
don't know if anybody's hearing us.
yes.
And so,
That's real, man.
so
That's
it's a real thing at every step, no matter how passionate, motivated, inspired you are. You and I have even who are very motivated and
yep.
inspired to do this work have had times where we looked at each other and like, what in the like nobody's
Yes,
hearing us.
yes.
Nobody's hearing us. Yeah,
Facts,
so it's a real
facts,
thing. It's a real
facts, facts,
thing.
facts. So, in closing, I have one question.
All right.
What does the weight machine back there mean?
Ah, so scales of justice back behind my head. That's the scales of justice. So the idea is that what is justice supposed to do? Justice is blind, right? Lady Justice, the got the blindfold on, and the role of justice is to take the information from the two sides and just weigh them. No finger on the scales that's pushing it one way or the other. Somebody puts five, beans on one side, two beans on the other side. What wins? The one with five beans on it, right? And that's how cases in the justice system should be decided, is that justice is blind, that nobody should be looking at what happens there. They should be looking at just the facts, just the information that comes in, just the law, and then weighing it that way. And so it's actually one of the great things that happened this year is we had our Bring Your Child to Work Day back in April, whenever that was, and give kids the tour of the office. And a couple of the kids asked that exact same question, and so we brought it down. We put some different things on each side of the scale, and then we would say, "Okay, now you don't know. Pretend you don't know who put what on each side of the scale. Which one should win?" And then we did that with a few different things, and we really pointed out that it shouldn't matter who puts the beans on the scale. It's the one that weighs the most should win, and that's how the justice system should work without have anybody having any idea of who put that information there, but like
Wow,
which one wins, right?
that's powerful. That's a whole nother conversation in itself.
Yeah. So great. If it was a good enough metaphor for some kids, I really hope that that resonates. But yeah, that's the goal, right? Is that it should just be weighing the facts, weighing the law, not any of the other personal biases that come into to the space.
Wow. And there is another one. That was our dessert. So we can move next. Tone, it was a pleasure again, man. Glad we
Yeah.
got a chance to do it. And I will see you here shortly for another in person meeting. All right.
That's right. That's right. See you in a bit.
See you in a minute, man. All right.
All
Over and
right.
out, man.
Bye.
Bye.